My name is Ursula Diamond. I am extremely happy that you can join us today. That was a lovely introduction, Evan, and I'm very excited to let you know about everything that's going on. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen and then we can get going. This is our Soll Center. This is a photograph of what you can see if you come to our department on campus. As you can see, bright, light, airy. The whole concept is that the students feel incredibly welcome and excited to be in this space. And there's a lot of areas for collaboration and coming together to talk to each other, as well as to get access to all of the people and the resources who are there. So I'm going to kick off by just kind of talking a little bit about the structure. Evan alluded to this. The Soll Center for Student Opportunity is an umbrella term, a single department that focuses on three core areas. One of them is career services, and we're going to be going into quite a lot of detail about career services today. Sponsored internships and experiences is all about how the students spend their summer and the funding that they may need in order to have a productive summer. And then finally, the third column or pillar of the Soll Center is the scholar communities. We're not going to be talking a lot about scholar communities today because students have already been selected for those and hopefully questions have already been answered. But we have the lovely Beth Milev on the phone. So if anybody does have any questions about scholar communities, she is here to answer them. And you can also just pop anything in the chat as well if anything occurs to you. All right, so let's start talking about career services. The whole concept that we pursue is not one of us telling students what to do, but very much operating as part of a team where we are coaching students and empowering students. We want to build lifelong skills, so not just help them get through college, but help them feel comfortable about how to keep navigating their career long after they've graduated from CMC. And so what that means is we are helping to identify what is each student's individual customized goals and how we might work with them to build strategies for achieving those goals. And we start early. So that's one of the reasons you're going to meet my wonderful colleague Soll in a minute. He focuses on first years and sophomores. But we really encourage our students to come into career services early in their freshman year, because it's never too early to start this conversation. And even if it's just to figure out what am I interested in, where are my skills, what are my values, that's a really great exercise to go through when you first start at college, because that will lead to hopefully some very thoughtful exploration, which means that every year they're here, they are building upon that, they are continuing to explore, so that by the time they get to their senior year, they've figured things out and they're ready to move forward with action planning and implementation. We are organized using interest clusters. So what that means is different schools have different models. Interest cluster model is the one that I think is the more progressive one that more and more schools are now using. It indicates the fact that we don't believe that your major necessarily dictates what career you go into. Today, it is pretty much the norm to study and to learn about something for 4 years that may or may not have something to do with your future career, or there may be a number of intersections that you're interested in pursuing. So with the exception of, if you want to become a software engineer, you should probably be studying computer science. And if you want to become a medical doctor, you should probably be focusing in on those sciences. But beyond that, there is literally very few industries in which they expect you to have a specific major or series of things on your transcript before you enter a new career. So that's one of the reasons that we employ an interest cluster model. And each one of these interest clusters is a grouping of industries. But the other reason is because it encourages students to explore. The number of students who come into CMC assuming they want to be an investment banker or a consultant or a software engineer, and then they take some classes and they're like, that's not what I thought it was going to be. And I think I need to broaden my horizons. So what this means is this interest cluster model allows students to kind of explore different areas, figure out what might be the career pathways that they would like to focus on over the next few years. Each one of these interest clusters has a coach, a career coach who focuses on not just the employers in this industry, the career paths, but can also provide lots of connections to alumni, to parents, and can give really expert coaching on how to pursue career paths in each of these interest clusters. And you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, grad and professional education, super important. Only about 10 or 11% of our alumni, our recent grads, go straight into grad school. But we often talk a lot to alumni who want to talk about law school, business school, medical school, after they've been out of school for a couple of years. So now let's talk about outcomes. I know you're all very excited to know how does this all work, and like what is the ultimate metric of career services? It's how our students fare after they graduate. And so one of the things I would, just as a kind of context, it is now industry standard in career services to measure outcomes 6 months after students graduate. It allows time to settle. It allows people to kind of figure a few things out over the summer holidays. And so generally we take a snapshot of where every student, how they're doing in about November, about 6 months after they graduate. The data you see on this page, we use a rolling average. So this is combined average data from 2018, 2019, 2020. The 21 data will be available at the end of this year after we've done our 6-month snapshot. But the numbers tend to be pretty consistent year on year. And as you will see, across all 3 years, it's approximately 84% of students are employed. They have a job, they know what they're doing. 12% have either matriculated into or are shortly about to matriculate into graduate or professional school, and only 4% are seeking employment. And we're immensely proud of the statistic. You may be wondering, is 4% good, bad? It's really good, particularly for a liberal arts college. We are immensely proud of this number. And that 4% has been consistent for about the last 5 or 6 years. So even during the pandemic, even during the summer of 2020 and the summer of 2021, we're feeling very confident in these numbers that this will continue. The median salary tends to increase every year. The most recent data we have is from 2020, and it's at a whopping 76,000, which is a number I couldn't even have imagined when I graduated from college. And on the right-hand side of the page, you will see our interest clusters again. So where do students typically gravitate to when they graduate? As you can imagine, in 2020, technology was booming. With the pandemic, with everybody trying to get their hands on remote services. And so we saw a bit of a leap in terms of the percentage of students who were entering technology and entrepreneurship in 2020. Our 2 next most popular ones, accounting, financial services, and consulting, have always been incredibly strong at CMC and reflects a lot about our economics majors, as well as for consulting, they love liberal arts students. And then you'll see how all the others land. The others are pretty much dividing up the pack between them: creative and entertainment, government, law, public policy, etc. But I think what's most interesting is those top 3 that are paying the best in terms of median salaries, and I think that definitely attracts students. So I'm excited for you to be able to see the 2021 data when that becomes available at the year end, and you can compare. And then we often get the question, well, CMC is a pretty small liberal arts school. Unless you happen to grow up in LA or have a good sense of the liberal arts landscape, what happens? Where do these students end up? Do they all end up in LA and San Francisco? Well, yes, a bunch of them do end up in California. They love it here. But you can see from this map, they end up everywhere, internationally. And this isn't just people going home to their home countries, but people who are landing in a whole host of different destinations. And the ones down the bottom are the most, in the US, the cities that attract the most of our CMC graduates. So now I would love to introduce you to my colleague, Soll Patel. He has only recently joined our team, so please be nice to him. He's learning the ropes a little bit, but he's already fully underway in terms of supporting not just first years, but also sophomores. So Jaisal, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Ursula. Thanks everyone for being here. My name is Jason Patel, as Ursula mentioned, and I'm the Assistant Director of First Year Programming. And this year, actually, I'll be helping both first years and sophomores, since this is the first time sophomores are on campus. So this title decides first year programming, but a lot of this also applies for sophomores. So yeah, just the first thing, Handshake, right? That's your one-stop shop for everything career resource related. So whether it's making an appointment with a coach, whether it's finding an on-campus job or internship off campus, Handshake is the one place to go, and it's a platform that we use in our office and that your students should be really familiar with, or your children. And then there is VMOC, and like it says there, it's an artificial intelligence resume scoring system, which is really cool because you basically upload your resume into this platform, and it gives you a score and it tells you how to improve it. So that's a very helpful, another programming platform that we use. I'll also be hosting several skills building workshops that I'll explain in the next slide. We have a virtual job shadowing program. We have a peers and careers panel, and then we have sponsored internships and experiences, which I'll get into. Yeah, so as I mentioned, these are the skill building workshops. So the first one that we're going to have is actually the first week of the school year in September. It's going to be how to secure an on-campus job, right? Because that's the thing that a lot of our students come into wanting to know, right? And just how to get those early. And then the second week, we'll have resume and cover letter workshop, because some of these jobs, might do require resume and or cover letter. So just want to make sure students have that foundational piece, right, of being professional. And then interviewing 101, that's part of a lot of job search, right? Making sure you know how to interview. And then, as I mentioned, Handshake, but also LinkedIn, right? That's also another very important platform to build your professional brand. And finally, yeah, tell me about yourself workshop. That's more like elevator pitch, right? How can you market yourself, right? Verbally. So yeah, those are some of the workshops we're going to be offering. And although the dates and logistics aren't all listed here, just know that I will be emailing all the students all this information soon. So yeah. And so the first thing we have is virtual job shadowing. So they're going to be Fridays in the fall, and they're hosted by alumni and parents like you all, right? And they're really amazing opportunities for students to virtually explore, because it will be virtual this year, different career paths across multiple industries. So they literally get to shadow, right, these amazing employers. So yeah, and it's gonna be 2-3 sessions a week, and for accessibility, they're gonna be all recorded. So if your student can't make it, then they can always access it later on. And then we have the peers and careers panel, right? And this is a way for seniors to pay it forward to first year students. There'll be one panel for each interest cluster. Remember, the interest clusters is what Ursula mentioned in the second or third slide, right? And that way students can really get more insight and advice on, from their peers, right, who have gone through this process, 3-4 years in, and really understand how to find internships, and just understand and learn real life advice about how to pursue these different interest clusters. And yeah, now I'll hand it over to Ursula for SIE. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jaisal. You'll be hearing from Jaisal again in a minute in terms of how you can talk to your students about what to expect during each semester. But before we do that, I just want to quickly cover Sponsored Internships and Experiences Program, SIE. This is such a unique thing for a school of our size and for the makeup of our school and our student body. It is the opportunity to allow any student a means to be able to pursue a really quality summer experience. We believe highly in experiential learning. The education that the students get in their classrooms is excellent. But in order to really take that into the workplace and to be an all-rounded successful student, they don't just need academics, they also need ways to practice it. And so getting access to quality internships and experiences, and to be able to not only practice, but explore different interest clusters, different industries and career paths is so invaluable. And so that's why we created this program. It is many, many years old, and it is going very strong. So some of the key points about the program: it supports all CMC students regardless of financial need. So from that perspective, we're somewhat needs blind in terms of how we provide the funding. However, we do prioritize first and second year students. You'll remember when I was talking about the career services slide, I said early engagement was really important. And so we are really hoping that first and second year students in their first and second summers really get the opportunity to take advantage of some of these internships and experiences. And as I'm sure, as you parents very well know, not a lot of paid opportunities out there for internships and experiences. So we're trying to level the playing field by providing funding to first and second years who otherwise would not be able to afford it. By the time you become a junior, we're kind of hoping that you're now tapping into some exciting paid opportunities and you can rely less heavily on this program. But for any juniors who still need support, we try our best to support them in any way that we can. So there's the funding mechanism, but of course the students have to find the actual internships. And so we provide a lot of mechanisms through our career coaches, through our peer network, through the CMC internship database that has 7 years worth of what previous CMC students have done. It's an amazing starting point for students who are a little confused and lost about how to find my first internship. But any students who have any concerns, the starting point is Soll. He is your contact for anybody. So if there's not one other thing that you take away from here, any questions that you're getting or you think your student might have, tell them to make a meeting with Soll. He would love to meet with them individually and answer their questions. In terms of what do we sponsor? Well, the last 2 summers, it's been a little challenging to sponsor an international internship because of travel restrictions due to COVID. We have everything crossed that for the summer of 2022, international travel will open back up. But of course, like everybody else, we are just watching and waiting and seeing how things evolve. But we have, for the past couple of years, definitely pivoted more towards US domestic experiences or domestic experiences in whichever is your home country, as well as remote internships, which of course have become increasingly popular over the last couple of years. We fund all interest clusters. And, you know, for some of those experiences, it could be as short as 4 weeks, but we'll give preference to internships, which are typically 8 weeks or longer, because it takes a few weeks to get up to speed, to learn how things work before you actually even start really learning. And so we've found that 8 weeks is kind of like the minimum for when you really start to get some value out of the internship. The funding is budget-based, which is always very exciting because for many students, this is the first time that they've tried to figure out what is it going to cost me to live. And so from that perspective, we have budget guidelines, we provide lots of support in helping them to do that, but it's really good exercise for them to learn for a few years to like figure out, okay, I'm moving to DC, I'm going to need to find an apartment, I'm going to share with some people, I need to eat, I need to get transportation, I need to fly there. And actually for them to figure out how much all of that is going to cost is a really good exercise from a personal finance perspective. We offer lots of support to help students figure out how to apply for funding. Application workshops typically are during the months of January and February, and the application for funding applications opens in February and it's rolling. We encourage students to only apply for funding when they know exactly what they want to do. So they have an offer, they're just waiting to say yes on the offer just as soon as they know that they have the funding to support it. And so it's a rolling basis. So from any time between February and May, we will love to have a conversation with each student about, you know, what are you thinking? Do you have a confirmed offer? Let's talk about your budget and what you need. There is a number of different pools that we pull from. Our donor support is so important. That is what causes this program to run. So that's through donations from family members, from trustees, from alumni. These are all different as well as the institutes and the centers, which are on campus. There is a number of different funding sources. We rarely run out of money, right? So we have a way of allocating so that we are trying to be as if somebody is coming in with a late opportunity, we absolutely try our best to fund that. However, some of the more senior students, some of the juniors may get waitlisted so that we can absolutely fund the first years and the second years. That's really what I mean by that preference. So what happened last year? This year, I guess, this last summer. We were able to fund 400 students. The average award was for $3,000, which meant that we allocated just over $1.2 million for this program. Last year, it was a little bit more. There was more students who participated. This year, I think it was a little tough. Students have been on Zoom all year and were a little tired, and the thought of doing a remote internship may have been a little challenging. We're expecting this number to bounce back up again for summer of 2022. And as you can see from the class numbers, a quarter of the people who took advantage of the students who took advantage of this were first years. Over a third were sophomores, and again, were juniors. So I'm going to hand back over to Soll again to talk a little bit about what might be some messaging that your student is going to be receiving in each of the semesters, and then so that you're aware of what they're being told. And if you wanted to reinforce some of this messaging, that would be amazing. So Soll, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, exactly what Ursula's saying, because so far we've been kind of breaking down all the services and resources we offer, but now I kind of want to put it chronologically for you all so you can have a sense of what your student will be doing right this year. And this mostly applies for first years and sophomores actually. So yeah, the first main thing is, the most important thing is attending the career services orientation that I'll be hosting along in the sophomore one. So the first year one is August 26th, the sophomore one's August 29th. And again, I'll be sending those dates and emails to students, but just have those on your radar screen because they're the most important events, because they're, students will get a rundown of everything that's going to be happening, including, these slides. So yeah, just make sure that attend that. And then Handshake, as I mentioned, since it's the one-stop shop for all your resources, just make sure they get set up, pretty early on, click their profile, check out their interest clusters. Because if they do check out the interest clusters, then they'll get emails, right, from about information and jobs and internships from those industries. And then, yeah, once you start building your resume, right, we have our own preset template so that they don't have to just create it from scratch, right? They can kind of fill it in, and then they can upload it to BMOC, right, which is that program and platform I mentioned earlier where you can upload it and it kind of gives you a score and you can enhance it. And then, as I mentioned, some of the skill building workshops, then they can start attending those. First one being the on-campus job, and then the next one being the resume and cover letter, and then to which you can apply to on-campus jobs, right? And then, once all this happens and you kind of getting settled in, right, then you can definitely meet with me, and that's where we can, kind of just see like what goals, your student has in mind, just kind of goal set and see, like, make some plans for this semester. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I'll have other skills workshops that will be available for first years and sophomores. And then, yeah, Job Shadow Fridays, which will start in October. So that's the last thing for the fall. And yeah, so in winter break, we really want to make sure that your students enjoy and rest and rejuvenate their first 2 weeks, right? Kind of take a break and like enjoy their break. And then, maybe the last 2 weeks they can start preparing to return to campus, right? Just mentally, emotionally, maybe update their resume if they have anything relevant to update. Maybe start creating a LinkedIn profile, which, another plug, I will have a LinkedIn workshop also in the spring. And they can register for the Peers and Careers panel that I mentioned earlier, because that will happen, soon once the spring semester starts. And then, they can start thinking about potential internships and experiences, right? Start doing some research on what they might want to do in the summer. And then finally, the spring semester. So yeah, first it'd be just important for them to just kind of brainstorm like what questions they might want answered about the summer options once they do that research over winter break, and then come to me, right? Make an appointment on Handshake. Then we'll meet, we'll create a plan, right? We'll figure out what summer options would be best for you. And then once, you have that in place, you can learn about summer funding and the application process. And then you apply, right, through the application process and whichever opportunities that you find interesting. And then finally, as Ursula just mentioned, right, the SIE, you can apply for funding for that opportunity that you found and hopefully acquired. So yeah, that's kind of the chronological rundown of what your first or second year would look like. So yeah, just again, make sure you come to the orientation to just hear this again, and that's the most important thing. But yeah, I'll hand it back to Ursula to wrap it up. Thank you all.
Great, and yeah, I hope you're getting the feeling that we have a plan here. Your students are going to be well taken care of, and there is a very well-proven track of experiences and events and programming and support to make sure that they really do maximize their first year and their second year, particularly for those sophomores who have never been on campus. And so for them, they're doing a lot of things for the very first time as well. So as I said, they are in excellent hands with Soll for the next year or so. So we often, I just want to close, I'm sure Jeannie will appreciate this. We often get parents saying, well, how can I help? Like, this all sounds really interesting. How can I get involved? And I just want to point out a few things that we typically are supporting as part of the parent networking board. You'll see on the right-hand side, everything is high impact. Everything on this page is valuable, really useful to our students. Some of them require less effort than others. And so it's kind of, this isn't a scientific thing, but it kind of sort of demonstrates to you what you might expect if you wanted to sign up for any of these things. So at the top, probably the easiest thing, the lowest impact, particularly if you happen to be on campus for family weekend anyway, is we typically have some kind of networking event to which we invite parents and have parents as experts in their fields come and talk or just chat about their experiences or things they wish they had known. So you'll be getting some messaging as a parent closer to family weekend in February 2022 to kind of talk about what that might look like. Virtual job shadow visits, as Jason said, if you have any interest, if you think you might be a good candidate for talking to a group of students for about an hour about your career, your industry, your career path, we would love to hear from you. Feel free to let Jeannie or Jason know, and they would love to kind of add you to the list as potential speakers. We have been having a lot of virtual career panels and virtual networking tracks. They're going to continue being hybrid over the next few months. And so if you think this would be an interesting thing, or you have some ideas that you would like to share, either about your own career and sit on a panel, or as a networking track, what that means is students and groups coming to learn about different industries. Again, we would love to hear from you. Experts in residence, this is the concept that students are looking for people who can kind of tell them, guide them as to how to move forward with their careers. And it can be a little daunting to encourage students to network for the very first time. It feels a little scary at times to reach out to people you've never met. And so having a group of parents who say, listen, I would love to talk to students. I'm super happy to do that. I'm very comfortable with somebody connecting with me. That's what it means to be an expert in residence. And so if you're interested in that, then again, we would love to hear from you, because the more experts in residence we have, the more we can support our students. And then finally, probably the most from an effort, but also the most impact, is being able to provide a job or internship, either through your own organization, through a friend's organization, through a colleague's organization. We are always looking for additional opportunities for our students to be able to take advantage of. And particularly for first and second years, internships, fabulous. We would love to hear from you. So for all of these things, if any of this sounds interesting to you, you can see a link at the bottom of this page, which if you click on will take you to the Career Services website for families, and it will allow you to sign up in a form to say which one of these things you'd like to volunteer to do. If that all sounds too complicated, just drop a line to Jeannie. I'm volunteering her right now to be able to, or to anybody on the call whose name you recognize. That is it. I am going to now stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to hand over to the wonderful team to tell us what we missed in the chat.
Well, that was fantastic. Thank you, Ursula and team. Really appreciate your time and all of your efforts. We'll say, Ursula, you said that the students are in very good hands and there is a plan for them. And I don't think I've seen a better plan in higher education. So some of the key elements are to encourage your students to go in, especially if they don't have any idea what they want to do over the summer or after 4 years, and just have a chat and learn, work on their LinkedIn profile, do a mock interview, do some resume review with some of the coaches. There really are a lot of great opportunities to learn and engage. And it's a great staff too, just fun to chat with. So a few questions came in during the last half hour. Handshake and LinkedIn. When can we start setting up profiles or accounts? When should students be expected to do that? And are there any templates for what they can do?
Every student has a handshake account. The minute that they are listed as the registrar's office as being part of CMC, they automatically get an account. And so they just need to sign on with single sign-on. So right now they should be able to access it. Jason's going to be sending out a welcome email to all first years and another welcome email to all sophomores in the next week or two, and he'll be giving full instructions as to how to do that. But if anybody wants, if wants to get started early and is excited to start building out their profile, we can absolutely provide those instructions as soon as you need them. For LinkedIn is a free account. You don't need to do anything through CMC for that. You can literally just go into linkedin.com and start creating your own profile. And so that's very straightforward. In terms of training as to how to do it, the sites are actually both pretty intuitive. Once you kind of get in there and start playing around, it leads you through each section and how to fill those out. But we do have templates and training for that, and Jason will be sharing those.
Great, thank you. Paul asked, how does a company get involved with offering potential internships to students? And I'll expand that to include full-time roles as well.
Thank you, Evan. So as I mentioned at the very end, I probably got to this point after that point was made in the chat, but we have on our website, if you just go to CMC Career Services, you will come to our website and you'll see families is one of our navigation links. And on there, you will find a whole list of different ways to volunteer. There is one form for posting an internship or a job, and it's very simple. You just literally kind of pop in, answer some questions about what that opportunity might be. We take it and then we suck it into Handshake. And so then it becomes very visible to everybody. And we have particularly if it's provided by a parent, one of our career coaches will follow up to chat with you about, is there any other information we need to know? If it's for you, are you looking for a particular type of student? How can we help you fill this role? So that's one form. And then there's another form for all the other volunteer opportunities, like becoming an expert in residence or sitting on a panel or a networking track or anything like that.
Great. Ursula, can you talk a little bit about mock interviews? When should a student start thinking about asking for a mock interview and what's available?
When they are ready to start interviewing, I think is probably the best time. So as incoming freshmen and even for returning sophomores, not a huge amount of activity for interviewing, at least professional interviewing with employers during the fall semester. It is far more likely that it's going to be an activity that's going to happen a lot in the spring as they start reaching out, identifying opportunities and applying to them, and then hopefully getting invited to be interviewed. In terms of mock interviewing, all of our coaches offer that service completely. And so I find I personally do a lot of behavioral interviewing with students, where it's those questions that Jason was talking about. Tell me about yourself. You would never, that's the question you're going to get in pretty much every interview. And many people, including, grown-ups as well, have a lot of struggle to how do I respond to that question? And so helping them through that and some of the basic questions and how to really come across as prepared and polished and ready to ace that interview. So mock interviews, whenever a student just reaches out to career services, we can set up somebody to help them do that.
Great. We had a follow-up question on job shadows. Are they only available on Fridays? Are they during the semester, during a break? If you could just talk a little bit more about job shadowing.
So I'll start, Jason. I don't know if you have anything to add when I'm done, but we traditionally, job shadows used to be over school breaks. So they would be 2 weeks in January before school started, and then they would be through the summer months. And the student would physically go to an office location. With COVID for the last 18 months, that has just not been practical. And so last fall, we pivoted to a virtual online series of job shadows. Interestingly enough, it opened up a number of benefits. One of them is you no longer had to be geographically tied somewhere or located somewhere to participate. Now anybody can dial in and get access to somebody in the Bay Area or somebody in DC or somebody in London. So wherever we were hosted the job shadows from, any students could participate. It was very equitable and very cost efficient, and also very time efficient for the people who were actually delivering the job shadow. They only had to do 1 hour and could really just talk about themselves for about an hour. Given that the evolving nature of what's happening right now and still some uncertainty around travel restriction, we decided to continue with the virtual job shadow this fall. And then we're hoping that by summer 2022, when travel opens up, that we'll be back to an in-person physically go to a job shadow site. And then that opens everything up, right? Then we can invite any parents and alumni who would like to participate at that point. It becomes a little less curated and more, hey, if you have an opportunity where you're willing to host a student, then we can match you with a student. We'll do our best to do that.
Great. So is career services really about just job shadow internships and full-time jobs post-college? What about all those jobs we have on campus, Ursula? Should a student go to career services or handshake for that job in the Athenaeum or in the advancement office or something like that?
Okay, so we just did an audit, and I had heard 4 years ago that a number of how many jobs were available on campus. And I've always been quite cynical about that number. And we just completed an audit, and it's true. We offer approximately 1,000 on-campus jobs at CMC alone through the academic year. That doesn't count the other job opportunities that are available on the other campuses like Pomona or in the local community. So there really is a job for everybody. In fact, there's a job for multiple jobs for everybody who would like to be considered for those. We are try our best to list every single one of those opportunities in Handshake. And in fact, they go live in Handshake tomorrow on the 15th. So, it's tomorrow the 15th? 13th. So by the time over the weekend, with any luck, everything is going to be live and visible, and your student can kind of browse to their heart's content and use the filters to identify what is on campus, and then to start potentially putting in some applications. There will also, in addition to Handshake, there is also a series of emails going out. So from individual departments saying, hey, we would love for you to come and work with us this fall. And so they're trying to get an early lead on students and encourage them to apply to jobs there. So there's a multiple different ways that students might hear about opportunities, but we're trying to have them all in Handshake so that everybody's aware of what's available. I see a question about international students, and absolutely, yes. As long as the student has had their visa processed so that they are here on campus and have activated most students have an F1 visa. And so as long as they have activated their F1 visa status, which should happen when they arrive in the US to come to CMC, they are absolutely eligible to work on campus, highly encouraged. The one extra step that the international student has to do is they just got to get their social security number all sorted out. But they can still apply for jobs. It's just they can't apply for a social security number until they have an offer in hand that they can show to the government officer. But yes, international students are very welcome to apply to on-campus jobs.
Nita just put in what percent of students have a job on campus, and from what 1,000 opportunities you mentioned, I think it's more common for a student to have 1 or 2 jobs on campus than for them to not have a job on campus. So if you could comment on that, Ursula, and also maybe some people think a job is 40 hours a week. Comment on maybe how many hours our jobs typically are.
That's a really good point. Yeah, when we say job, yes, it is definitely a different animal than I think we would think about for a full-time position. It is typically the most a student can work is 20 hours per week. And for many students, that is the absolute upper limit. You're here at CMC to study, to make sure your academics are in good shape. And so we definitely want to make sure that students are not exhausted with their academics and the extracurricular and their clubs, and then also having a full-time job on top of that. So we try and cap the number of hours worked at 20. Many students are working less than that. They're just working at jobs that they really enjoy or that they think they can get some great skills from. Other students are maxing out the number of hours that they can work because it's part of their financial need package, and they want to really make sure that they can access all of that financial support. And so I don't know if I have a specific number for what percentage of students have on-campus jobs, but Evan, you're absolutely right. It's going to be the majority because it's such a easy accessible way to make some additional money, as well as to learn some amazing skills and experiences for your resume during the semester.
Thank you. And of course, some of those jobs are paid for through financial aid, and a lot of our students have in their financial aid packages work study jobs built in, and a lot of our jobs allow for work study. So it's a great way to help keep a little spending money in your pocket while you're going to school as well. We do love our student workers and alumni and parent engagement. They have the most fun. Everyone should apply for the alumni and parent engagement jobs on campus in advancement as a whole. When does the recruitment start for those on-campus jobs? Can a student wait until November, or should they get the ball rolling fairly soon?
For the on-campus jobs?
Yes.
They're already, as I say, they're about to go visible in Handshake. Some are already visible because they're trying to hire as quickly as possible to get ready for the arrival of all the students on campus. And so there are some jobs up, but many more are going to be posted over the next couple of days. And to be honest, they tend to move fast, right? They're interviewing, and they are making offers for these jobs within the first couple of weeks of the semester. Because many of these jobs are helping support the departments and the activities and the work that needs to be done to welcome all the students back on campus. So it's definitely, and that's one of the reasons that JSOL is offering how to find an on-campus job workshop and resume and cover letter workshops so early in the semester, is to help to make sure that students have all the support that they need before they apply for the roles. And as I say, typically by about mid-September, a large number of the jobs are then filled. And then there will be a trickle of additional jobs coming through, and there will be more jobs hiring in the spring. So I think it's one of those messages for the students is you gotta kind of hit the ground running a little bit. If you have your eyes on a specific on-campus job that you would really like to do, or you would like to be part of Research and Institute Center in some capacity, or there's a specific department that you're excited to work for, encourage your student to start figuring this out quickly. Start exploring on Handshake, start reaching out to JSOL with questions, because those jobs move fast, and the process for hiring moves very fast.
Yep. And Ursula, I would just jump in too. In Handshake, the resource that JSOL was talking through, VMOC, there's a resume template in VMOC that students can access. What we see with first years is they have the big long list of accomplishments from high school. That's how they got into CMC, and we don't want to discount that, but I think a lot of our campus offices and partners on campus are sort of looking for that traditional resume template, not the list of accomplishments. So that's something that they can get started working on now if they are really eager to be chomping at the bit, and they can find that template in VMOC, and we can also email it out as well.
Great. Ursula or Beth or JSOL, are we worried at all about our freshmen doing something immediately after their first year versus taking it easy or going on a trip? Like, I have one parent who just kind of, can't they just take it easy? What are your thoughts? What's your advice there?
I love that question. Oh my goodness, yes. I think particularly for the first year summer, it is, I would work with your student, and we will work with them to figure out, what does a productive summer look like for your individual student? Productive summer might mean my student is exhausted, absolutely exhausted. They've been working flat out all the way through high school, straight through CMC, and they need a break, and they need to travel, and they need to spend time with family. That might be a productive summer for that student. Another student might say, you know what, I have this really well-paid job that I had in my high school summer, and I need to keep doing that. I need that money. I feel really good about it. I want to keep growing that business. So I want to work this summer. Another student might say, that was a little tougher academically than I'd anticipated. I may need to spend a little bit of time working on my academics this summer and making sure I'm fully prepared for my sophomore year. And then there's a fourth category of like, I am ready to start building up my resume. And that's when the internships and experiences come in. So it's such a great question, because I may have left the impression that we encourage all the students to take full advantage of that SIE funding. And it's there if they want it. But if it's not the right time for them, if they need to be doing something different this summer, that is totally okay. And we absolutely support that. And, you know, between ourselves, we often say to students, you can't really mess up your first summer, Because if you end up doing something completely different, or you do something that you're like, I don't know how I'm going to get that on my resume, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Don't worry about it. You can just not put it on your resume. You can't mess up. So whatever it is you need for your summer, that's what you should be doing. And I think it will evolve over the coming months. That's why keeping to check in, and often we'll find that parents start asking those questions over winter break. So Evan, what are you doing this summer? Are you staying home? Are you traveling? What are your plans? That is a perfect time to be asking those questions over winter break, because that will motivate students to come back at the beginning of the spring semester and say, hey, I need some help figuring this out.
There are some opportunities that are specifically designated for first-year students. So if you're into Googling on the CMC website, there's something called the Apple Fellowship, APPEL. It's a writing fellowship just for first-year students. They designed the program. It's facilitated through the Writing Center, and fingers crossed, there can be international travel or domestic travel. We had a student a few years back she was from South Korea, but had done 7th grade through 12th grade in Mexico City through her parents' job. And so she went back to Soll that first summer to answer the question, am I Korean or am I from Korea? And she sort of went through that exploration process with herself. She did all of the tourist things in Soul and wrote a daily blog that helped answer that question. So that's an example of something she structured herself. It's just open to first-year students, and it's a really, I think, cool opportunity on campus.
Great. Good advice about that first summer. Ursula, Beth, do you know what I did my first summer?
What did you do?
No guesses? No guesses?
No.
I managed a vineyard in Oregon.
Oh, on brand for you.
And 13 acres of Pinot Noir. And for those parents that don't know me, I enjoy my wine every so often. Like, you'll have some of the wine at the reception at the end of the day on Sunday the 22nd that we procured especially for CMC. Let's see here. Ursula, let's say a parent thinks that their student isn't going to the Soll Center. They aren't taking advantage of all these incredible opportunities. What should said parent do? Should they call you? Should they call them? What should they do?
Oh, that's such an interesting one. Beth, any thoughts on this? Because I'm like, you don't want to feel that you're forcing a student to come and take advantage of a service, because that never goes well. It's very resentful.
Yeah. So I would encourage my student to come in to the Soll Center and make an appointment. I think that goes further if the parent sort of knows a little bit more about what resources have already been shared with the student. So Ursula sends out an email. It's called the Career Inform. It comes out every Sunday afternoon, evening-ish. So that's a good conversation opener for your student. Hey, what was in the Inform this week? What types of jobs are in there? It's broken out by interest cluster. And then there's usually a special events portion at the bottom. And then, you could say, hey, have you met with Soll yet? He sounded great on this call. What's going on with him. And then I have a 4-month-old, so my parenting experience is a little lacking at this point, but I think you want to encourage them to come in to talk with us. I think we're pretty friendly. As Evan mentioned, we have the Nespresso machine. We also, I can't remember if it was highlighted, we have about 15 student workers that are called the Career Services Mentors. So your student can come in anytime between 9 and 5 and meet with a student mentor. So if talking with a grown-up about your career interests and what you want to be when you grow up is maybe too far down the road, have them just come in and bring their resume, bring a hard copy, bring their laptop in, and we can mark that up. Our students will sit down and work with your student one-on-one just on a drop-in basis. So that's a good entry point into this.
Great. And what if, as a parent, I call you and I just want to talk to you about my student and what they're doing?
Well, so we most likely can't give you specifics about your student because of FERPA, but we can tell you about the programming that's going on in the office so that you can encourage your student to come in and take advantage of those items.
I think an advantage, if a parent really wants to talk to one of us, and I would always say, well, could we invite the student onto the call too? Because I really don't think there should be anything that we should be talking about that the student shouldn't also hear. Because if there's some messaging there, we want the students to hear it directly. And so we can also facilitate that in terms of, getting both the parent and the student on the call and just having a chat.
Great. Allison Aldrich put something in the chat about the summer internship term from the academic calendar. I think there's a good discussion moment of an academic internship versus perhaps something that's more of a paid nonprofit or paid career-based internship.
Right. So in many states, California included, an employer, if they are offering an unpaid internship, need to be able to offer an internship for credit, for academic credit. And so students often take advantage of that because particularly if they need some, they can sign up to get part of this internship contributing towards the number of points they need in order to graduate and towards their GPA, and they can work with a faculty member in terms of writing some kind of paper at the end of the internship, which is an amazing thing to be able to kind of reflect on what have I just done for the past 2 or 3 months, how is this kind of impacting me, and working with a faculty member to work on the extent of that experience. And so I think in that in the academic calendar, what that is referring to, there is a window that I would like to
For our athlete students, about a third of our students play a varsity sport. What do you recommend in terms of an on-campus job for someone with a varsity sport?
Well, I'm gonna pump this over to Beth because she was an athlete at CMC. So Beth, from first-hand experience, what would you recommend?
Yeah, so pro tip, get the job that allows you to do the homework at your job. So like I was a fall athlete. I worked for the IT help desk and I could do my homework while I was waiting for the phone to ring, and professors were like, I can't map my printer to my drives. I don't know how to do it. So there's a whole slew of different jobs, right? So a lot of athletes work at Roberts Pavilion because they can work the front desk and do their homework. But then there are other types of jobs that, like, our student mentors are at the front desk all the time helping people, and we prefer that they don't do their homework while they're here. And it depends a little bit. Like, I was just a fall athlete, so I was done by November. So my spring hours could be more than my fall hours. Those winter athletes, and Jeannie can speak to this probably a little bit more with basketball, but it runs over both semesters. So a lot of it depends on how you're doing in school. Your grades should be the most important thing. I don't think I had a job until spring of my freshman year because I wanted to come in, play volleyball, figure out school, and then I figured out jobs in the spring. So you will not be behind at all if you just take a semester to get acclimated and get to know your team. I think I rambled a little bit, but the point is there's plenty of flexibility, and your student know yourself best and figure out kind of what the right approach is for that.
Fantastic. Well, we're approaching the 1 o'clock hour here in California. Anything, Beth or Ursula, you'd like to add before we close?
Come see us. We have free coffee. We're fun. And first day of school breakfast is on the books, folks. So we will be outside the Soll Center for Student Opportunity from 8 to 10. There will be free food, breakfast sandwiches, yogurt parfaits, photo booths. So if you would like a first day of school picture of your child with a sign that says first day of school, August 30th, 2021, tell them to come see us between 8 and 10 on the first day of school.
Fantastic.
And I would just end by saying I am so excited to meet your students and to know that we're about to start this really exciting journey together. And I can't wait to both meet them and to meet you when you are next on campus. So please come and find us. We always love meeting parents.
Fantastic. All right, Beth, Ursula, Soll, thank you so much for being here and taking the hour. As always, we look forward to seeing all of you on campus soon for move-in day or family weekend in February. As mentioned earlier, we do record these sessions and post them to the parent orientation page where you would register for these programs. And Jeannie put that in the chat earlier today, so feel free to check that out. This is our last program, Jeannie, I think, of the week. So We do look forward to seeing you all on the 22nd. As always, if you have questions, email parents@cmc.edu or any of us individually. Feel free to unmute, say hello, say goodbye. We'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.